Hello everyone, welcome back to Business School 101. You've likely heard the term tariffs tossed around in news headlines, especially during heated discussions about trade wars or international negotiations. But what exactly is a tariff? How does it work, and why do countries rely on them? Most importantly, how do they shape global trade and impact the products we buy every day? In this video, I will discuss these questions with you. Section 1. What is a tariff? Let's start with the basics. A tariff is essentially a tax or duty that a government imposes on goods and services imported from other countries. In simpler terms, it's an extra charge that a country applies to foreign goods to make them more expensive. The idea is to protect domestic industries by making imported goods less competitive compared to locally produced goods. For example, imagine that the US government imposes a 20% tariff on imported cars from Japan. If a Japanese car costs $20,000, the tariff would add an extra $4,000 to the price, making the total cost $24,000. This price increase makes it harder for Japanese cars to compete with American-made cars in the US market. Section 2. Types of tariffs. In general, there are three types of tariffs. Number 1. Ad valorem tariffs. This is the most common type of tariff, where a percentage is added to the value of the imported good. For example, if a product costs $1,000 and the tariff rate is 10%, an extra $100 will be charged. Number 2. Specific tariffs. This type of tariff applies a fixed fee per unit of an imported good, regardless of its value. For example, a $5 tariff might be imposed on every kilogram of imported steel, regardless of the price of the steel. Number 3. Compound tariffs, a combination of both ad valorem and specific tariffs, where both a percentage of the value and a fixed fee per unit are applied. For instance, there might be a 5% tariff on the value of an imported product, plus an additional $2 per unit. Section 3. Why do countries impose tariffs? Generally, countries impose tariffs for following reasons. Number 1. Protecting domestic industries. Tariffs shield local manufacturers from foreign competition, particularly in industries where the country may not be as competitive. For example, in the early 2000s, the U.S. imposed tariffs on imported steel to protect American steelworkers from cheap steel imports, particularly from China. This raised the price of foreign steel, making U.S.-produced steel more competitive in the domestic market. Number 2. Revenue for governments. Historically, tariffs have been an important source of revenue for governments, particularly before modern tax systems were established. Even today, some developing countries rely on tariffs to generate income for public services. For example, countries like Bangladesh and Kenya use tariffs on imports to fund infrastructure projects, education, and healthcare systems. Number 3. Retaliation and trade wars. Tariffs can also be used as a retaliatory tool in trade disputes. When one country imposes tariffs, the affected country may respond with tariffs of its own, leading to what is called a trade war. For example, in 2018, the US and China engaged in a trade war, where both countries imposed tariffs on each other's goods, impacting industries like agriculture, electronics, and automobiles. Section 4. How do tariffs affect consumers and businesses? Tariffs can affect businesses and consumers in the following ways. Number 1. Higher prices for consumers. Tariffs raise the cost of imported goods, making products like electronics, clothing, and food more expensive for consumers. For example, during the US-China trade war, tariffs increased prices on goods like smartphones and household items by 10 to 25%, leading to higher costs for American consumers. Number 2. Impact on importers. Domestic companies competing with imports may benefit as tariffs make foreign goods more expensive. However, businesses that rely on imported materials face increased production costs. For example, American automakers saw a $1 billion rise in costs due to steel tariffs, which raised car prices and affected consumers. Number 3. Global supply chains. Tariffs can disrupt global supply chains by increasing costs for imported parts, affecting the final price of assembled products. For example, a US-made laptop using parts from China, Japan, and South Korea could see its final price rise by 5 to 10% due to tariffs on imported components, affecting affordability for consumers. Number 4. Overprotection of local businesses. Excessive tariffs can lead to complacency and reduced competitiveness, as businesses are shielded from foreign competition. For example, Japan's 1980s rice industry became reliant on tariffs, leading to higher costs and less innovation, which weakened its ability to compete globally when tariffs were reduced. Section 5, Tariffs and Trade Agreements. One way countries avoid tariffs is through free trade agreements, or FTAs, where they agree to reduce or eliminate tariffs between member countries. These agreements encourage trade by making goods cheaper and increasing economic cooperation. For example, the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, now replaced by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, removed most tariffs between the US, Canada, and Mexico. This has led to a significant increase in trade among the three countries, benefiting industries like automotive manufacturing and agriculture. Section 6, Summary. To sum up, tariffs are a key tool used by governments to regulate international trade, primarily by imposing taxes on imported goods. They serve important functions, such as protecting domestic industries and generating government revenue, while also playing a role in global trade negotiations. However, tariffs can also result in higher prices for consumers and disrupt global supply chains. Understanding tariffs is essential to comprehending the complexities of international trade and how countries balance protectionism with economic growth on the global stage. Alright, that is all for today's topic. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time.